Two guys, same age, same city, same $50,000 in the bank. Jake buys a house. Marcus buys stocks. 3 years later, Jake is on the phone with a plumber at midnight because something is leaking and he does not know what it is. Marcus is asleep. 10 years later, they sit down and actually run the numbers. Every dollar in, every dollar out, every hour spent. And what they find makes one of them go completely quiet. This video is that math. All of it. No shortcuts, no agenda. Just the real numbers that most people never see before they make one of the biggest financial decisions of their life.
Let me set the stage properly, because the details matter here. Jake and Marcus are both 28 years old. They both just hit $50,000 in savings, which, by the way, puts them ahead of most people their age. They both earn $55,000 a year. Same city, same cost of living. The only difference is what they decide to do with that $50,000. Jake uses it as a down payment, 20% down on a $250,000 house. He takes out a 30-year mortgage at 7% interest. His monthly mortgage payment comes out to about $1,330 a month. He finds a tenant. The tenant pays $1,800 a month in rent. On paper, $470 a month in profit. Jake feels like a genius. Marcus takes that same $50,000 and drops it into a total stock market index fund. No picking stocks, no timing the market, no drama. He also sets up a $300 automatic contribution every month, and then he does absolutely nothing. His coworkers ask him what he is investing in. He says index funds. They nod politely and change the subject. Day 1, Jake has a house, a tenant, and a story to tell. Marcus has a confirmation email. It is not even close in terms of how it feels. But feelings and math, those are two completely different things.
For the first few years, Jake is living the landlord dream. Rent checks hit his account on the first of every month. He drives past his property on the way to work and thinks, "I own that." He is claiming mortgage interest on his taxes. He is building equity with every payment. He is watching the neighborhood tick up in value. Everything about this investment feels real, tangible, and smart. Now let us look at the actual numbers over 3 years. Jake collects $64,800 in rent. His mortgage payments total $47,880. That leaves $16,920 in gross cash flow before everything else. Here is where most people stop doing the math. Property taxes, $3,000 a year. Insurance, $1,500 a year. He replaces a water heater, $1,200. A leaking roof, $2,800. 1 month of vacancy between tenants, $1,800 in lost rent plus $600 to clean and relist. And Jake manages the property himself to save money, which means phone calls at 10 p.m., weekend showings, coordinating repair guys on his lunch break. After all real costs, Jake's actual net cash flow over 3 years is somewhere between $2,000 and $4,000, not $16,920, between $2,000 and $4,000. And that does not count a single hour of his time. Meanwhile, Marcus has done nothing. His portfolio, $50,000 plus $10,800 in contributions, sitting at about $76,000. 0 phone calls, 0 emergencies, 0 midnight plumbers. But wait, Jake still has leverage working for him. His $250,000 property has appreciated about 3 to 4% a year and is now worth around $270,000 to $200,000.
His equity, the difference between what the house is worth and what he owes, has grown to roughly $55,000 to $65,000. That is real wealth, and it came partly from using the bank's money. That leverage is the one advantage stock investors cannot easily copy. So, after 3 years, Jake has more equity but less sleep. Marcus has more sleep and a growing account he never thinks about. The race is still very much on. Let me stop here and tell you the things nobody puts in the YouTube thumbnail.
Because the $470 a month profit number, that is the number at the real estate meetup. That is the number on the podcast. That is the number your landlord friend brags about at the barbecue. What nobody talks about is everything that comes out before you actually keep any of it. Vacancy. The average rental property sits empty about 1 month per year. That is a full mortgage payment with zero income to cover it. And when a tenant leaves, you are paying for cleaning, repairs, listing fees, and your own time to screen and show. Maintenance and repairs. The general rule is budget 1 to 2% of the property's value every year. On a $250,000 house, that is $2,500 to $5,000 annually. Some years it is a $200 faucet. Other years it is a $7,000 air conditioning unit that breaks in August and your tenant is threatening to call the housing authority. Capital expenditures. Roofs last 20 to 25 years. Furnaces last 15 to 20. Water heaters 10 to 12. These are guaranteed future bills. They come in chunks of $5,000 to $15,000. If you are not saving for them every month, you are not running a business. You are running on luck. And then there is the one risk nobody likes to say out loud. A bad tenant. A tenant who knows the eviction process can stay for 3 to 6 months without paying. Legal fees, lost rent, damage to the property. That one event can erase an entire year of profit or more. None of this shows up in the $470 number, but it always shows up eventually.
Now, we skip to year 10, and this is where the story gets very interesting. Jake's property is worth roughly $335,000 to $384,000. His remaining mortgage balance is about $166,000. That puts his equity at approximately $170,000 to $184,000. He has been on his third tenant. He replaced the roof for $8,500. Plumbing emergency, $1,400. 1 month empty between tenants. He raised rent to $1,950, which helps, but his property taxes and insurance went up too. His actual cash-on-cash return, the money he pockets relative to what he put in, is hovering around 3 to 5% after all real expenses. Not bad, but not the 15% return he told his friends about at the barbecue. Marcus, still doing nothing. His portfolio, with consistent $300 monthly contributions and a 10% average annual return, is sitting at approximately $165,000 to $180,000. He put in $50,000 up front, $36,000 in contributions over 10 years, $86,000 total out of pocket. The rest is pure compound growth. 0 weekends fixing anything. Here is what is remarkable about year 10. They are almost exactly equal in total wealth. Jake has slightly more if you count his full equity position, but Jake also spent hundreds of hours managing his property, took on $200,000 in debt, concentrated his entire investment in one house in one zip code. Marcus has his money spread across thousands of companies. He never lost a single night of sleep. He can sell any of it tomorrow with 2 clicks. The race is even. The experience is completely different. And this is exactly where most people stop the comparison. We are not stopping here. Year 20. This is where the math fully separates. Jake's property is worth roughly $450,000 to $500,000. His mortgage is either paid off or nearly there. His equity is somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000. He has been collecting rent the entire time. But after 20 years of maintenance, repairs, tenant turnover, taxes, insurance, and at least 1 major renovation, his total net cash flow profit above what he spent is somewhere between $40,000 and $80,000. That is his cash profit after 20 years of work. Marcus. His portfolio at 10% average annual return with $300 monthly contributions. His original $50,000 has grown to approximately $420,000 to $460,000. He put in a total of $122,000 over 20 years. The rest, over $300,000, is pure compounding. No debt, no tenants,
No 2 a.m. phone calls about a broken pipe. When you line up their net worth side by side, they end up in the same ballpark, somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000 each. But how they got there is completely different. Jake worked for his. Marcus waited for his. Jake had stress, debt, concentration risk, and zero liquidity. He cannot sell half a bedroom if he needs cash next Tuesday. Marcus had volatility. Yes, he watched his account drop 30% in 2008 and again in 2020, and that was gut-wrenching. But he had liquidity and freedom the entire time. And here is the detail that changes everything. If Marcus had increased his monthly contribution by just $200,
his 20-year portfolio would be roughly $550,000 to $600,000. In real estate, to grow your return, you buy another property, another mortgage, another set of tenants. Double the work, double the risk. In stocks, you press one button and type a larger number.
Now, I would be lying to you if I only showed the downside of real estate, because stocks have real risks that people love to skip past. Volatility is brutal. In 2008, the market dropped 37%. In March 2020, it dropped 34% in 1 month. If Marcus had $150,000 in his portfolio and watched it fall to $95,000 in a matter of weeks, that is not a number on a screen. That is a physical feeling. And the data shows that most regular investors panic sell at the bottom and buy back in after the recovery, locking in their losses at exactly the wrong moment. Stocks also do not send you a monthly check. There is no rent payment hitting your account on the first. And real estate has genuine advantages that stocks simply cannot match. Leverage. Marcus used $50,000 to control $50,000 in assets. Jake used $50,000 to control $250,000 in assets. When property values rise, that leverage multiplies everything. It is the main reason real estate has created more millionaires than the stock market in most surveys. Tax advantages. Real estate investors can deduct the theoretical decline in their building's value, called depreciation, from their taxable income, even when the property is actually going up in value. That is a legal tax shelter that stock investors do not have. House hacking. If Jake had lived in one unit and rented out the others, he could have reduced his housing costs to nearly zero while building equity. The stock market cannot do that. And 1031 exchanges, which let you roll profits from one property into another without paying capital gains tax. You can grow a real estate portfolio tax-free in ways that stock investors cannot touch without a retirement account. Real estate is not a bad investment. It is a misunderstood one. So, who won? Jake or Marcus? Here is the real answer, and this is the part that actually matters. Neither of them won because of which asset they picked. They both ended up in roughly the same place in terms of net worth. What separated them was how they thought about it going in, and whether they understood what they were actually signing up for. Jake won if he enjoyed being a landlord, wanted a tangible asset, understood the real costs, and had the time and temperament to manage it. Marcus won if he valued his time, wanted flexibility, could handle watching his number go down without selling, and wanted something that required almost zero ongoing work. The real trap is not real estate. The real trap is not stocks. The real trap is picking either one based on a YouTube headline, a podcast clip, or something your uncle said at Thanksgiving, without ever running the actual numbers for your specific situation. Most people lose not because they picked the wrong asset. They lose because they picked it for the wrong reason. So before you put a single dollar into either, ask yourself one question. Did I include everything? The time cost, the stress cost, the opportunity cost, the real numbers over 20 years, not the napkin math at the barbecue. Because the answer that includes everything is the only answer that actually matters. If this video made you think differently about how you look at money, subscribe. Because every week I cover the financial mechanics that actually affect your life. The stuff that most financial media skips over because it is not simple enough for a headline. The real information is always in the details, and you just watched 10 minutes of proof.